BXB. It's in the game!
Hey guys, it's me Ben, back with another one of my quick reviews, and this time I'm looking at Hand of Fate 2, which is the sequel to Hand of Fate, which I imagine many people have played at this point, or at least dabbled with, because it was given away as things like the free games in the Games with Gold program, I believe around a year ago. And it's a curious little game. It's quite a hard to describe game, which I can sort of attest to because the amount of times I've had to restart this review, because it's a game full of interesting and diverse mechanics. So it's an action RPG that is based around a deck building mechanic, which also couples with that strong roguelike elements. Yeah, it's weird, huh? But there's something incredibly charming about it. And what we've got with the sequel more than anything is that this visual presentation is better than it ever was in the first game. So I played this game for review on the S and the X, and on the X it looks gorgeous in 4K. Really, really stunning. There's a little bit of tearing in loads and transitions, but when you're actually doing the deck building, when you're actually customizing your decks and looking at the lovely art style, especially in static visuals, it's stunning. The cards look great. Everything is presented well, the text is very readable, which might seem like a small and unimportant thing, but that's how all the story is conveyed in this sort of classic fantasy tropes that you get. Also, the other great thing I really love is the voice acting in this game.
These cards must guide you to my side.
I think almost exclusively from the dealer, who is this enigmatic deity who decides your fate. You know, Hand of Fate, that's where the fate comes in, as you are given the various cards that become another important element of this game. One of the nice new additions, actually, I want to give a shout out to immediately in Hand of Fate 2, is that there is a level of customization for your own character now. In the first game, you were a set dude. In this, you can be a dude or a chick, and you can do visual appearances, hairstyles, clothing, colorizations, and all of that jazz, which is really nice. But let's talk about these cards, because that's really where the meat of Hand of Fate is. So as you progress through the game, you will pick up more cards. You will get cards for completing the various dungeons, and that will help you customize your deck. And then what you do then is that those customized deck elements will then come into play in the subsequent dungeons. So you might have lots of nice bonus things that give you a fairly easy ride, but maybe don't give you as many rewards. So it's a risk and reward system. And one of the other elements that's been introduced in Hand of Fate 2 to go with that risk and reward system is a new companion system. So you'll have a choice of various companions, again associated with a card that you can take with you into the dungeons that will give you various buffs and help you in certain forms of challenges. And the predominant challenge in Hand of Fate 2 is combat. And I'm happy to say that the combat in this iteration of the game, this particular installment, number 2, and I hope there's a 3 as well, is much improved. It's smoother, everything looks better. It's kind of a Batman Arkham sort of Knight Light kind of combat with parries and counters and various timing-based mechanics. There's much more variety in the enemies this time around as well. Actually, countless enemies types that have got different types of attacks that will maybe debuff you, that have different kinds of protection mechanics, that have different forms of attacks that will be like heavy and light, or they could have status effects. There's loads of stuff going on in this game. The guys, the developers, have really doubled down on the sort of framework they established in the first game. They've honed it, they've got sort of refinement here. It's a real evolution of what came in that first experience, which was fun and quirky, but now I feel like they're really coming into their own. They're really hitting their stride with Hand of Fate 2. Like I mentioned, you've got so many new and exciting sort of additional elements into this game that is almost bewildering to try and talk about all of them. On top of the kind of the combat mechanics, on top of the card mechanics, and the roguelike elements, which mean, you know, if you die when going through a dungeon, you're going to have to start it all over again. Obviously, there's the progression system, which is much like a roguelike, where if you don't get, say, the card that has the sword you want on your time through the dungeon, then you won't have that. There's no permanent inventory for your character. Each dungeon starts you fresh, and therefore gives you a lot of freedom to really customize those decks in ways that maybe you want to challenge yourself, but you want to really go for that high risk reward situation, or maybe you want an easier run that will maybe give you less rewards, but will maybe get you to the end bit of that dungeon easier. There's so many things to do in this game. There's now even a dice minigame on the actual desktop where you get to roll dice and change the outcomes of different cards and situations. I find this game creative. I think it looks great. It sounds great. I think it plays so much better than the first game. I find the dealer himself incredibly compelling. I love a strong narration element in a video game. I'm a massive fan of Bastion, and while it's not totally reactionary to the things you're doing in the game, it certainly feels like it sometimes, and he'll throw in comments, snide remarks, sort of things talking about the current state of the world. He has a great sort of obfuscated knowingness to him, where he almost feels like maybe he knows this is a video game, and that he knows he's in a video game, or somehow above the game you're playing. It's a fascinating world, and it's presented in such a compelling way. I absolutely love my time of Hand of Fate 2, and I think you'd be a fool to miss this and skip this interesting experience. I really, really recommend it, and while it's not perfect, I can't give this anything less than 4 out of 5 stars.
BXB. It's in the game.